Don in London. Hello. July 24th. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or both. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour around people, places and things, always trying to fit in, always trying to be what I thought I ought to be, and to be included, to be loved and loved back, and learn how to live life. And over the years, alcohol helped prop me up when life got difficult, and it also helped me enjoy the happiness that I thought was owed me, I guess, by working hard and fitting in. So these days I've really realised that whilst alcohol played a big part in my growing up and in my years as an adult, it didn't really help me very much when it came to living life real, living in reality, living life as it is. It is what it is. And living to extremes of happiness or sadness is not good for any human for prolonged periods of time. So somewhere in the middle, where we can feel life as it is, feel our feelings fit the moment that we live in. That is, there is no history coming into the present moment. All things are reconciled and resolved as best they can be. Our feelings work in the moment of now, and we can be happy or sad as life is. So why did I have to stop drinking? Simply, I was addicted and it was killing me. I'd burnt myself out and didn't know what to do. And I had the good fortune to have family, friends, community and medical people around long enough, and a suggestion that I go to a fellowship, and that fellowship was and is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And it worked for me. Not straight away. I was a poor student in the beginning. I hated the very idea of drink being taken away from me. So going to AA was the very last idea in my head. Indeed, I was ignorant about AA for a long, long time during my drinking days. And had I been more knowledgeable, I don't know that it would have made any difference, because addiction is a disease, a mental illness, and it's in the news right now with the sad death of Amy Winehouse at the age of 27. And I heard it on the news last night before I went out to a meeting, and I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to go out to a meeting, but when I hear somebody's life is over at the age of 27, and I know what I was like when I was 27, but for the grace of, go I. So, you know, it's a horrible, horrible situation. Family, friends, fans and people pile in on the grief of a young person losing their life far too soon in tragic circumstances. And it's heartbreaking for a lot of people. And unfortunately, the way industries work in this country and in many countries, we are all expected to work to the very limit of what we are capable of doing without respite. And of course, if we can fix ourselves in some way so we can keep on doing that, we do. And the tragedy is, addiction comes in so many forms. We don't even know we're addicted until it's happened. And then we deny it, or we live in ignorance, and are always looking at a way to fix our problem by stopping, by starting, by fighting, by standing on our own 2 feet. And the problem is, self-will, willpower, is no defence against addiction. So what helped me? The Fellowship of AA. And it turned out to be the best place for me to offer freedom of choice, to live life real as it is, to experience happiness or sadness or any emotion as it can be, as life is today. And I'm really grateful for that, because I would have gone to my grave early had I not. And that's the problem with addiction. It catches us, and then we fight against it. We try to use our willpower, and we think we have to put on a brave face and brave it out and show people and demonstrate to people that we're well again. And the simple answer is, We can keep well if we know what to do, but it doesn't go away, this problem of addiction, if we don't treat it on a daily basis with a bit of common sense. It will kill us. So how does AA help me? Well, I'll share the AA preamble here from this little card, and then share some of my thoughts and some AA thoughts of the day. I don't speak for AA, never can, never will. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak for themselves, where they will, as they will. It's their choice. And many people keep it in the rooms of AA because anonymity and everything connected to anonymity is sacrosanct. It helps us get back to normality, not back to being a pop star, not back to the extremes of life. Coping at those extremes is not helped by any drug or any drink. So, AA, what is it? Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. It's quite a big weekend, not only Amy Winehouse dying, but the absolute tragedy of what happened in Norway over the weekend. And one man, one mission, killed many people in the most horrific of circumstances. Unbelievable, disbelief, horror, shock, and all the things going on around the world with famine and people in those countries who control them sometimes saying it doesn't exist. That's denial as well. Denial of reality, yet we see it on the TV. We see the truth of people starving to death. So we do what we can do on a personal level. We do what we can do on a personal level, and it's a personal choice. And I'm working on that. So I can only work on it because I'm alive, living life real. I know I'm saying this over and over again today. And it's also an important birthday for an ex-partner of mine, who I will still love, I guess, until the day I die. But it's a different sort of love these days. It's without conditions, and sometimes we can't do anything to help somebody in our past. Even by our presence or communicating can be difficult, and there's no point in trying to stir up old wounds just by wishing them well. It is difficult. We have to live life as it is today and do the best we can with what we have. Even though people might be behaving at their worst, it's the best they can be in that moment. And although I don't know whether I can say anything about forgiveness of absolutely horrible and horrific events, there are consequences. But if we can find and understand how forgiveness works in our own lives, self-forgiveness, then we're on to an understanding of how we can forgive other people and understand why these things happen and why a person is sent to extremes of behaviour, becomes insane with an idea that they can do some good by doing some bad. That's the horror, because they have been treated in a way which has made them able and capable of those horrible things. And it's not about getting away with anything, it's about righteousness often when it's not justified, because it's not based on reality. So mankind has a lot of problems, and we try and drink them away, at least I did, because I couldn't cope. And I realise now the ability to cope with now is actually more spiritual than anything I may put in my body to try and fix my feelings. So the answer to spiritual for me is, what is it? It's the ability to cope with reality, happy or sad. And when we can't cope, we have a denial process, which is, I cannot believe what is going on. I just can't believe it. So our feelings are risen, if you like, to cope with self-esteem or sometimes ego. And then we find the anger, the frustration, the depression, and then through to acceptance of what is. But there are consequences always for every action. So we live the consequences of what has happened on a personal level, and we can understand why the consequences of big things in the world have big consequences for us. We are all interconnected in some way. Anyway, that's me a bit preachy at the moment, and the AA Daily Reflections, written anonymously, is about helping others. And I think I've got this right. Yes, helping others, 24th of July. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. And this is true from last night's meeting, where we've got newcomers in the room and people of 30, 40 years sobriety. Newcomers bring us the bad news of how bad it is to be addicted. And the old-timers sometimes have gratitude for being alive for many years with a sober head, having resolved how to live and be in reality. It says here, self-centeredness was my problem. All my life people had been doing things for me, and I not only expected it, but I was ungrateful and resentful they didn't do more. Why should I help others when they were supposed to help me? If others had troubles, didn't they deserve them? I was filled with self-pity, anger and resentment. Then I learned that by helping others, with no thought of return, I could overcome this obsession with selfishness. And if I understood humility, I would know peace and serenity. No longer do I need to drink. And if I understood humility, which is about learning and being level with people, that no one is below me and no one really is above me, we are all on the same level if we get to humility. And I do believe this, and I hear many times over in the rooms how people cannot forgive what happened to them back in the day, what was done to them. And I realise that a lot of the time when things were done to me back in the day, and in my childhood by people around and school and education and all that stuff, people were doing their best, even though it was awful, because that's all they knew how to do. Now I need to forgive myself for being in those places at those times with those people, because I only did what I could do back then, which was try and hide, cover up, isolate, and when I found drink, that was it. It covered up all those seething, horrible feelings. So I have to forgive me for my part in life, and if I can forgive me, then I need to keep the door open for forgiveness of others. And even though some of those horrible experiences where adults were supposed to be minding me in school and wherever it was, the horrors of what went on for me and other people, it was the best they could do with what they knew and how they had been treated. So the question is, let it go or hold on to it. If I hold on to it, my mind is full of poison. If I let go of it and say, that's it, an end to those times, and let go, and let people be, and let the past be, and forgive them, because that was the best they could do. It is the hardest thing, because if we can forgive ourselves, then we need to forgive others, and still, we all live the consequences of our actions. Some people are dead, and that's it. Some people remain alive and have to deal with the awfulness of what they did back in the day. But it doesn't mean they're completely bankrupt as human beings. Something can be saved. I don't know what in some circumstances, but somehow it's got to work out. And we need to stop hurting people, because hurt people will hurt other people. So last night also A fellow said, "As long as I don't drink alcohol, a little weed will do me no harm." It's called dope for a reason, an escape from reality, from spiritual into oblivion. In oblivion we lose sight and senses. Happiness, living life real and connected, is as good as it gets. And that's it for me. You know, happiness is living life real, the real life, not one which is being fixed with alcohol or dope. And to suggest that dope is okay when you're an alcoholic or have an addictive problem or an addiction problem is not so good. But, you know, there's no point in contradicting a person and saying to them or challenging them face to face in a way which is unhelpful, or calling them a fool. Maybe it's working for them in that way, but I wouldn't suggest it as a way forward, certainly not for me. Another year, open, honest and willing daily. Open, honest and willing. Those are the things to do with the 12-step program. Emotional and spiritual life, or living, takes a while to settle into pattern. To understand the feelings we have and experience, and experience all of them, not just the ones we feel others will find acceptable. How am I feeling? Why? And what may I do today? The key is open, honest and willing to live the truth, and spiritual is our reward. So if I am open, honest and willing to let life happen and be included and be a part of, it keeps on going. And after my meeting last night, I took a trek around some of the tourist sites of my town, London town, round Trafalgar Square and up to Eros and Piccadilly and past Buckingham Palace, not in that order actually, but Buckingham Palace, Trafalgar Square, Piccadilly and then home. And I was home by midnight, fortunately. And you know, that's part of my life, taking photographs at those times of day. I'm going to see how they turned out later. That's something of me in my life, being able to get about. And one of the things that was mentioned in the sharing last night, a person with crushed discs in their neck, and they're trying to make sure that they don't become paralysed by doing what they're told by their doctors. So part of my story was getting the right professional medical help when life had gone wrong. And here is denial again, which comes into play not only in me but also in the professional fraternity. I had been suffering from malnutrition for nearly a year without being diagnosed with what was wrong, and that was type 1 insulin-dependent diabetes. So it's no wonder I was feeling off for a year or so. But it took a year or so for my doctor to come out of denial and say, well, maybe it's not all in your head. Maybe it's not your predilections to drinking in the old days, which is colouring your understanding of reality today. So denial comes in many forms, and prejudice as well, which is why many people prefer to keep their status as recovery being anonymous, that people don't know, so the prejudice doesn't hurt them or hit them. Well, with me, I'd rather take the risk, because with all the other complications I have, with other conditions, it is better for me to let people know exactly the nature of what is wrong with me and what can go wrong. Or they can find themselves trying to treat half a person and the other half they don't know about. But that's me. And another year, helping others is not pleasing people. Yeah, helping other people is not pleasing people when we do it correctly. Where we ask, when I say I am responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help, for that I want the hand of AA to be there, and for that I'm responsible. Helping others means that we need to lean on the many. One addict will pull another addict back into the mire. One person trying to help another person on their own is likely to be pulled down rather than build the other person up. What I've learned is fellowship is the many help the individual find recovery, because it's the many voices in the fellowship which offer wisdom far beyond anything I can share, because I've only got one point of view, and it's not necessarily the truth as you understand it. If we are open, honest and willing, we share the truth of what we know. As we share, others share their truth back as best they can. Nobody is perfect, we simply make progress Truth can be a long haul. We learn wisdom together as we travel this road of destiny, imperfectly perfect in every moment, always, now, and spiritual. And it took me a long time to understand what is spiritual could be reality, because everything happens in the now, and if it doesn't happen in the now, what are we going to do? You know, if we mortgage our common daily goings on to the future, we find ourselves in huge debt, and that can be emotionally as well, with the badness that comes with overextending ourselves. I'm talking about the emotional and spiritual life, but it also comes down to practicalities as well. You know, most of the world seems to be in debt. Why? Because we're wanting too much, and we're not covering our needs. We need to be okay, emotionally and spiritually, where feelings fit reality. I don't know if that's a good thing from a commercial point of view, where people are, and I was persuaded to buy it way beyond my means at some stages in my life, only to pay it back over and over. So these days I keep it very simple amount of money, not very much, enough. And now it's not enough because of inflation. I shall change my lifestyle again, just have to. But the whole point of this, on a day like this, where there's a weekend for me, memories of a deeply meaningful love affair with another human being, whose birthday it is today, and I hope she's okay, on a personal level. To see a famous person, singer with potential and prospects, kill themselves with an overdose, no doubt, progressively getting to a point where they couldn't cope anymore, and oblivion, trying to find that elusive fix as it used to be, couldn't and wouldn't work. No matter what it was, or who it was and who was involved, there is the tragedy that that person was unable to function anymore, and they got it wrong. Nobody really wants to die, even though I know, well, no, that's not true. Sometimes I did want to die. It was that awful. But I kept on waking up, and that was a real bummer, really. So, tragedy on a personal... Well, it's not... No, I relish and hope that my ex-lover, she has a good day. The Amy Winehouse thing, the tragedy of that, and Norway, and Africa, and we can go on, war zones. What are we doing to ourselves? All we need to do in the end, in recovery, is cover our needs, share a message of experience, strength and hope, learn how to cope with reality. We feel what is going on in the world, and we also feel what's going on in our lives, properly, life-sized. And if we all did that, you know, would there be any wars? Of course, because we're not perfect. People making progress, and, you know, humanity, we are all flawed in some way. We're not perfect. But what helps me at any time of day where I may be getting angry or disagreeable with myself or other people is that serenity prayer, which just, if I can stop reacting with anger, or sometimes overwhelming people with my feelings, the serenity prayer, if I remember it in time, will help me in the moment of now. It's about can do, can't do. I can change my attitude and behaviour. I can't change anybody else's attitude and behaviour, because they're directly reacting to mine, or what's in their heads. And I'm not a mind reader, but I can follow a path which says I need to be me, to be able to say yes and no, to be able to understand why a situation is the way it is. When I say I can change my attitude and behaviour, it means sometimes I walk away or stay put. I can't change your attitude and behaviour means sometimes I stay because I like it, and sometimes I need to walk away because I cannot change you. I can share, be included, or sometimes I need to exclude myself. So what is that serenity prayer? To God, or in good conscience, a meditation which catches me in the moment, and I think that's so important, to be able to live in the moment of now. Spiritual. God, or in good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is always, for me, just for today.